Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'd like to introduce, everybody pretty much knows me, but I'd like to introduce CapCap's guest today, Martha Holler. She is the founder of Shine PR, and she's joined us today to talk about, I guess, Women's History Month. CapCap is dominated by women. It's no surprise. But yeah, Martha, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you've had a journey as a woman to the point of founding Shine PR, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks. And good morning, everybody. Hey, everybody. Well, interesting. So I was a product of a single sex education. I went to an all-girls high school. I went to college for a couple of years to a co-ed school, and then lo and behold, found myself transferring and going, oh yes, to an all-women's college. And had a great experience there. And some of the mottos and the lessons that we learned in those environments have really helped me in my professional career. So my high school motto, for example, was, I will find a way or make one. We were,
I like that.
yeah, we were always taught that you can do anything you set your mind to. All career possibilities are open to you if you apply yourself and work hard. It was never really a question of whether we could or couldn't do something. It was whether we had an appetite for it, whether we had the interest and the skill set. But as head of Shine PR, we're focused on shining a light on our clients' goodness, on their purpose, and helping amplify that in the world and shine bright. And my personal philosophy is that each of us has a light that we shine, which is, and when I use that term, I really think of a purpose. Maybe we are sparking joy. Maybe we're sharing compassion. Maybe we're serving others. Whatever your product or service is, it probably ladders up to one of those things. And so I feel like my purpose is to help articulate that and shine it in the world. So I was working with a client the other day, and we were talking about International Women's Day, which and Women's History Month. So the day is on Monday, March the 8th, but the month extends the whole month of March, and the themes, extend then and all year long. And the theme this year is choosing to challenge. And I know we've had a chance to talk about that previously, and what does that mean to you? What does that mean to others? And for me, choosing to challenge is really challenging myself to, I'll say, be more aware, to speak up when I feel like women are disadvantaged, or when there's a sense of inequality. And I feel like also in this environment, today, with social media, with a Me Too movement, with, so much focus on social justice, I do feel like the time is right for us to challenge one another and challenge ourselves to finally get this right and to treat women equally.
And you talk about injustices and whatnot, and I think I shared with you that I have a client whose theme month was last month, Black History Month, and he has told me that the white man is on top, and then there's the Black man and the white woman, and we kind of vie for second and third, and then fourth is the African American or the woman of color, and I've reflected on that, and it's interesting because I wonder if I feel that is changing. Mm-hmm. But as that changes, I wonder how much it is that we compete against ourselves versus us raising everybody up. One of my favorite books of all time is called How Women Rise. And Ooh. In it talks about, it's the sequel to What Got You Here Won't Get You There.
Yeah.
And What Got You Here Won't Get You There is largely written for white men. Mm-hmm. And I love me some white men, don't get me wrong.
But I've loved one for 25 years. Yeah.
Right. I'm right there with you. We just celebrated our 25th during COVID. And I don't feel I'm competing with him. Mm-hmm. But there have been, and you and I are of a certain age bracket that we came up in a man's world,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And recently I learned something about how, and I forget where it came from, but the octaves of our voices changed to be deeper to to thrive in a man's world. I also
You
recently
don't
got some,
say.
you know, I mean, and that's something that we all
Wow.
did. But
Yeah.
back in the day, I'm sure this it was the case for you. I was the only woman at the table. I was the
Hmm.
token. And what is that? Oh, the morning show, I think, just took that and epitomized that about
Great.
there's only room for one woman at the table. And then there was all of this stuff about when women work together and the challenges they have, because I don't think we raise each other up. And I just see it being so much more hopeful for our daughter's generation,
Mhm.
um, because I think while we were told we could do anything, I think the bill of goods we bought was we can do it all.
Mm.
And I don't, right, right,
Wear ourselves out trying to do it all. Yeah.
exactly. And then how do we give ourselves grace as we go through that and make the choices that we want to make? And I've had many friends go through that journey, because on one hand you want to be a good mother.
Mhm.
Absolutely, you want to be a good
Mhm.
mother,
Of course.
right? And on the other hand, you're like, I have these talents. I have so much value to add in the world. How do I balance this? And I just I think we're getting to a better answer there. Um, but I think we've suffered in silence.
Well, it's funny. You just took me back to several things that I haven't stopped to think about in a long time. So I started my college career in engineering. And there were probably, I was at a large school, probably, 8 to 12,000 students. And the School of Engineering freshman class was 110. And I think like 8 of us, maybe as many as 10 were women. And coming from an all girls high school, very different. And I found myself, well, it was a very different experience than what I'd had in high school. And all of a sudden I was like, wait a second, what's going on here? And the guys really supported one another. And we women didn't quite figure that out. You'd think that we would, right? But we didn't pull together and help one another through the way you could literally see the guys doing, after class in the lab, in the library. Because I think there was this, like, I've got to figure it out on my own kind of mentality, or
Yeah,
just
why do we
like
think
not
we
this,
have to be islands? Yeah.
yeah, not the savvy to say like, okay, let's team up. Um, and then something else you said made me think about my mom and how far we've come. There was a time when we used to talk about, oh, do you work or do you stay at home? And thank goodness we've now, shifted our vocabulary to, do you work inside of the home or outside of the home? I used to joke that I would go out to the office because I needed to get some rest. No, I work outside of the home because I have to get some rest, because working inside the home and raising kids and running a household, being COO and CFO and CMO of your household is
Right.
exhausting.
Exactly.
So I do feel like we've made progress in that area, but my mother did work inside the home, and her career was raising us. And there's like no better job in the world. And as we got older, she got more active in her volunteer activities and really had her career in volunteerism that took her
Mhm.
to some posts that were national and then eventually international in nature. Um, and I've always, admired her for that ability to balance. And as I've raised my own kids, I see, my activities kind of growing with their independence as well,
Mhm.
because it is hard to do everything. It is
Well,
hard to
and
do this
that's one of
juggling.
the things that I love at CathCap, because I think you speak to different chapters of our lives, right? I retired for a decade,
Hmm.
um, and raised children. And at some point, the balance. And my mother did something similar. It sounds like your mother did something similar, right? She dedicated a piece of her life to this chapter, and then she
Yep.
moved back. And what I see now, and where Cathedral Capital is just an amazing inspirational place, is making that journey back into the workforce is really intimidating for women, and we make that possible. We value the skill sets that it takes to raise good citizens, right? And there comes a time when it becomes a little bit about you,
Mm-hmm.
where it probably wasn't for a long time. And so one of the things that I love at Cathedral Capital is that, and I did this in previous gigs, is we're able to offer women part-time, meaningful
Oh,
part-time
that's great.
positions so that they can balance both. And we openly talk about boundaries so that, like I think the pioneers of part-time work, felt pressure to work full-time and get paid part-time, right? But I want to go back to something you said at the beginning, which is International Women's Day.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's a communist holiday. I lived and worked in Poland, and I also spent a significant, very poignant piece of my career in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was a big holiday in Russia, and had so many other attachments to it.
Yep.
But I just had the aha moment. Have you watched The Queen's Gambit?
Yes.
Right. So why were the Russians on top in The Queen's Gambit? Because they collaborated, right?
Yep, that's right.
And to me, that
That's
was
true.
like an aha moment, right? If you want to, and they viewed it as success for their country, whereas
The whole
culturally
team.
we
Mm-hmm.
view it as success for the individual,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And that team element to me is what we should aspire to. And, that's what we're building at CathCap, is how do we function as a team?
Mm-hmm.
Because in the beginning, we were, individuals, and it's fun.
Oh, it is fun. I find it so fulfilling to collaborate and work as a team. I think for me personally, it kind of goes back to I was kind of a jock in high school and college, and I always migrated and kind of gravitated to those team sports because I love the camaraderie. I love the support. I love, I like making that layup, but when I have that beautiful pass and I set you up to make a perfect shot, that feels great inside. I love that feeling.
Right.
That's even better.
And, my next door neighbor played D1 basketball in college, and she teaches me a lot of things. And, often we're considered coaches. And I'm not sure that women who didn't play sports appreciate what that means.
Mm-hmm.
And growing up through a male dominated structure, so much of what I learned were plays in football, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, so this is everybody has their role, and everybody is valued for their role, and you only need one quarterback, right? But the quarterback can't do it without the wide receiver, and so on and so forth. And that's, I think, what women who didn't pursue sports, or felt that the only sports that they could pursue were individual sports.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we appreciated that, because we didn't feel the collaboration. We somehow thought we either sink or swam. I'm a swimmer. Sink or swam on our own, right?
But what's interesting about the individual sports is, and those you're usually competing against yourself or against the clock. And so I do think there are many times when women are misunderstood. So think back to my example in engineering. It may not be, it's not that we were not collaborating or competing against one another. It's just that we were so inwardly focused to do. I go back to your sports analogy. Sorry, I'm mixing my metaphors and examples, but not a team thing, individual sport. I'm racing against the clock and I'm racing to get my personal best. And I feel like sometimes women, we miss that opportunity to collaborate because we have that inward focus, but it is sometimes misunderstood as women competing against women. And I don't think that's always the case. I think
Fair
they're
enough.
competing against themselves.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah.
when you first said communist holiday,
Uh-huh.
I didn't know what you meant, but could you tell me more about what it was like to be in Russia or in Poland for a day like this? I really had no idea.
Well, so every nation has its holidays,
Mhm.
right? And I guess the takeaway for me is, and I probably should have reflected a little bit more on this before this call, um, is women's roles are different in different cultures. And I met in my time in Russia a lot of very powerful women.
Mhm.
Um, and what do they say that the women give birth because if men had to do it, the species would become extinct? And I respect powerful. Yeah, I respect strong women, and
Yep.
and I found it interesting that they raised the women up because Russia, I think, from a PR standpoint, seems male dominated.
Mhm.
But internally, I didn't feel that, and yeah. So to me, it was a sign of the past,
Mhm.
and not a sign of the future. Um, but I do think that our roles are changing, and I'm just excited about that.
Oh, I do too. And there's so much more. There's greater transparency and I'll say, connectivity.
Right.
Because our comments, we can share our experiences and our thoughts so freely and so easily with one another now. Um, so interesting story. I was working on an article for a client, and I had the opportunity to speak with some senior women at a fintech company. So they just like you all must go through some, I'll say challenges or breaking stereotypes with women, senior women in finance. They go through the same thing with women in technology. And this company has a presence in the United States and in Ireland and in India. And it's fascinating to put together the comments from literally from women around the world. And the first comment that I read from a woman in India was, "We face discrimination from before childbirth." And I thought, "Holy cow, what is she talking about?" And I read on, and she explained, having a daughter could be seen as a disadvantage, and then there are things like child marriages and dowries and inheritance practices
Mhm.
or rules and so forth that continue and I compared that with some of the other thoughts that I had on my own or comments that I got from some of the other women in the United States who are talking about some of what we talked about, which is juggling. Like, I know I can have it all, I've
Mhm.
gone for it. Now, how do I balance, all these plates that I have spinning in the air? I'm a mother, I'm a professional, I'm a volunteer, I play all
Mhm.
these different roles and I have the freedom to do so. Um, and it made me approach the day and I'll say my problems a little bit differently because I realize I'll take the problems that I have. If I'm going to choose to challenge and try to seek out and challenge myself to be more of a partner and an advocate for other women, um, I'll take that because my problem is somebody else's dream.
So right. So two things came to mind. One,
Yeah.
um, I think I read back in one of those women's magazines back in the day that you should only always have a handful of different types of friends, right?
Yep.
The one you've known your entire life, right?
Mhm.
Who knows all of your stories and that you can just go, "Bleh," right?
Mhm.
You need that trendy friend, perhaps the younger friend, who every time you get together, you learn something new and you're
Yep.
better off for it. But you also need that friend whose life is more of a struggle than yours, right? Because you can help support and nurture and grow that person, and you walk away going, yeah, I don't really have any problems.
Yeah. Yeah. Life is good. I'll take the ones I have.
But the
Very
thing that
blessed.
I think about is we need to keep our eye on the ball, right? And what is the ball? Because um, recently I've read some of the information from about classes, right?
Mhm.
And there's a professor out of the University of Texas, Payne is her name, and she's done some fascinating research, right? And so she's like got 15 different characteristics, and she studies them across. Ruby Payne is her name. She
Mhm.
studies them across the classes,
Mhm.
and I find this fascinating because she takes things and like food, right? And we're talking about, when we talk about poverty, we're talking
Mhm.
about generational poverty. We're not talking about
Mhm.
situational poverty.
Mhm.
But food is to be consumed, right? And then you look at the middle class, and food is all about the taste,
Yeah.
right? And then you
Pleasure.
look at the
Mhm.
upper class, and it's about presentation.
Mhm.
Then you look at the power structures, the hierarchy of different classes, right? And so poverty tends to be matriarchal, and middle class seems to be patriarchal,
Mm.
and the upper class, which I kind of like, is guess what organizational system it is for the upper class.
I was going to say patriarchal.
Oh, no, it's whoever has the money.
Oh. Oh, yeah, good point.
Right?
That's
Because we
true.
all know women
Yeah,
who, from
that's
a
true.
variety of different things.
Yeah.
And so I guess to me, is it really about race or gender or these things?
Mm.
Or is it really about competency and being the best you? Yes, I don't disagree that there is discrimination. And I've seen it at different levels. I've seen it as aggressive discrimination, and
Mhm.
I've checked a lot of those boxes over my career. Um, and I do think that there's this perception that we have to work harder to earn our seat at the table. And we talk about harder versus smarter versus harder and all that kind of stuff. But what would happen if the ball was really being the best version of ourselves, being um, the best teammate? What
Mhm.
could we do if, what do they say? Not that there's no I in team, but if nobody's worried about greatness happens when nobody's worried about the credit, who gets the credit?
Mm. Mhm.
And it's interesting in the book, what got you here won't get you there, which is very male focused, is that one of the barriers to men going up to the next level is their preoccupation with getting credit. And one of the barriers for women going up to the next level is not claiming credit.
Picking up to get the credit.
And we're
Wow.
cultured, right,
Yeah.
to say, oh, no,
Yeah.
or
It's okay.
deflect or whatnot. And I think that if we kind of own our greatness, if everybody, regardless of what boxes you check,
Right. I love that.
and appreciate the value of others.
So a far less sophisticated read, but one that I read early in my career was called Why Gutsy Girls Get Ahead and Nice Girls Don't. And it's a quick read and it's a fun read. And I would recommend it to folks, particularly, those who are, I'll say, earlier in their or starting off in a career. But one of the illustrations in that book was about, because it had these sort of situation, it was like a quiz and a situational test, and you had a couple of choices. So, you get praise or kudos for a particular project, and you get it by email, and your choices were, you read it, you feel warm inside, and you file it, or you read it, you feel warm inside, you print it and you put it in your file to, refer to later. Another one was, you read it and delete it. And another one was you read it, you feel warm inside, and you forward it to your boss and you say, hey, just wanted to make you aware of this. And not surprisingly, that's what the Gutsy Girl does. And that's, part of how the Gutsy Girl gets ahead. But it feels counterintuitive for many women. That's something that feels, really out of the comfort zone, because they're, not used to tooting their own horn, or that, the idea for success is inherently, something they feel is shared. Yeah. Fascinating. Oh yeah, we could like clear the calendar and talk all week about it. We're gonna head into like the men are from Mars and women are from Venus. And how long do you have?
Right. And so one of the things we do at Cathedral Capital that I think makes us successful is that we appreciate each other for our differences and embrace our strengths. Right. And we try to acknowledge our weaknesses and to find people on the team who can fill those things. And I think if you go through life with that attitude of, I am building a team of resilient people that are going to take this journey with me, that are humble enough to say, yeah, I'm not all that. And let's face it, nobody is. The places you can go. And I think that that's one of the things that attracts a lot of our clients, particularly our male clients, is we don't deny our femininity, right? We don't deny our strength.
Go girls.
We don't deny our intellect. And the fact that we show up as imperfect, I think creates an environment for people to be vulnerable.
It gives them permission to do the same and to pattern that back. How liberating that is. That's so great.
But you don't get to be this age and have this level of a career without acknowledging. And I think that some of my heart breaks for men, because I think that they don't get to have that same permission that we can give ourselves, right? I think it's harder for men because men were equally cultured that they have to be strong.
Right.
And they don't have the choices that women have. And I think if we can get in touch with that and stop putting ourselves down, that we'll rise.
And really, like, at the end of the day, for me, it all, something you just said made me think of this again. It all comes down to, like, treat people the way you want to be treated. Collaborate, lift others up, be comfortable exposing vulnerabilities, being authentic.
Yeah, and lift others up, right?
That's
Give
right.
them the hand.
That's right. Yep.
There is room at the table for everyone.
Totally agree. And that's that's what makes life so fulfilling and work so fulfilling, is providing that hand and seeing others rise up.
Well, Martha, I could talk to you till the cows come home. I'm sharing my Midwestern. Although Cathcap hails from Texas, which has more than its fair share of
cattle.
Yes. So, I enjoy your perspective. I look forward to spending more time with you in the future. And I wish nothing but success for you as the founder of Shine PR, as you shine the light on awesome things. So thank you.
Pam, thanks so much. Thanks for having me today. Great to be with you.
Take care.
Bye.